Pushkin.
Miguel, the Grammy-winning alt-R&B pioneer, is back with a new album, Caos. His first full-length in 8 years. It's the latest step in a career that's always pushed the boundaries of R&B, from his 2010 debut through albums that dabbled in psychedelia, dance music, and now touches of 80s industrial, and even ranchera rhythms. On today's episode, Miguel talks with Leah Rose about his unreleased 2023 album, Viscera, and how suspending himself from piercings in his back during its rollout helped him surrender control. He also shares a story behind the controversial imagery for his single, New Martyrs. And despite collaborations with Travis Scott, Mariah Carey, and Tame Impala, Miguel explains why he's happiest just making music with his friends. This is Broken Record. Real musicians, real conversations. Here's Leah Rose in conversation with Miguel.
Okay, so I want to ask you about the song New Martyrs. I'm curious how you came upon the artwork for the song, and tell me what the artwork is, how you came up with the idea, and what the thinking is behind it.
So the artwork is almost like a meme because, this year, I think seeing Luigi Mangione, carry out what he felt was right, regardless of what it meant in terms of the law and morally, seeing how that played out and how that resonated with so many people with their anger and their angst I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the disenfranchised and powerless feeling of watching a political system sort of cannibalize itself right in front of you, and see how corporate interest has really infiltrated and manipulated what is meant to be an equitable process, an all-inclusive process. It really is infuriating. And to see people really get behind an action that feels like vigilantism in any other case would be considered absolutely wrong, unjust. But having that context and then also understanding the story behind the personal injustice that behind the execution, seeing how people respond to that is like, even I'm like, nah, yeah, I mean, you're really putting your money before people's health. You're overlooking your humanity for your own greed. And I feel this is something that hit me so hard that I had to really look at myself and go, I mean, am I wrong for kind of being in agreement? Am I wrong for feeling like he kind of did the right thing on behalf of a lot of people who've been shitted on, and more importantly, like who have, had their loved ones at the cost of their loved ones, of their own lives, of, so real humanity, at the cost of humanity. I think this is something we're going to see more and more as we continue. I think that's a domino until there's some real correction, until there's some real justice established and a way to make right on things moving forward. I think that's why I have this dream where I'm like kind of like just doing what I feel is right, even though it may seem wrong. It's very much inspired by seeing that happen, seeing their response, and also addressing my own angst, my own anger and dissatisfaction with the world as it is, not just this country. And so New Martyrs is about that line towards the end where it's like, yeah, give me what's mine. I think a lot of people feel that way. Yeah. And more people are going to feel that way. More so what's behind that is like, do right by me and right by us, right by the world. Do the right thing. Because right now there's a lot of wrong being done. It's a lot of wrong. Yeah. And it's not like it hasn't been that way in what we know to be human history but it certainly feels as if it is insurmountable, or is maybe because we can tune in on everything at all times whenever we want. But that feeling, I think a lot of people feel that way, and that's what inspired. Yeah. That's how I feel, and that's what inspired the song.
How do you toe the line between bringing in these bigger issues like I know you've been active in issues around immigration and mass incarceration, but you're also known for making sensual, sexy, baby-making music. Like, how do you toe the line and talk about both of these things at the same time?
I remind myself that it's a human experience, and people who only focus on, or who primarily focus on, speaking out about injustice, activism, artists and musicians who do those things are also human beings, and they also, they have their own sexual life, they have their own romantic relationships and their experience with those things, and it's their prerogative to talk about those things when they want, and it's their choice not to or to. And this, for me, I think is probably top of mind because this is the world that I'm inheriting, that I've inherited. And I'm also in a position in my age and my experience to hold myself accountable. And I can't not do that. I'm not 21 or 18 when I wrote Quickie. It's a different thing, And so, these things have become increasingly important in my mind. And I think naturally that is why it's becoming more important in my music.
Do you ever question, like, if there's someone you're working with, like a producer or whoever's in the studio with you, do you ever turn to them and say, like, oh, am I going too far with this?
Definitely.
Is this a downer?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I mean, it's pretty much like that. I'm like, is this too much? The great thing about, I work with my friends. I think I've learned that that's the best way to maintain that sense of play, the permission to explore. I just want to work with my friends, man. I've done the transactional thing, and that shit sucks all the time. One, it's rarely a collaboration because it's easy to do shit, remotely. So it's not like we're getting in a room and we're really collaborating, at least not in my experience. And when it's no friendship in the middle, if that's not the thing, then you gotta go do some whack shit, like promote a song that you would never ever do on your own. It would never come from your expression. It's not your point of view. And to a degree, I can appreciate stepping into someone else's world and remaining in your point of view and in your style and having a presence in a new way. I think there's beautiful times when that's happened. But most times, I think in the past when I've seen that, it's been like people who really fuck with each other. Like they can go have a drink. Yeah. They like the same kind of movies or have something at the core that's like, oh no, like I really fuck with you. What happens when it's not like that is like now you got to go support not just the song, but like the video and then the promo behind it that turns out to be mad corny, and then you find out the person is really just a politician, and then you know what I mean. You're like, you could care less. Like it's easy to become just some shit you don't want to do. So I work with my friends, and in a room when I'm feeling like, is this too much? They just be like, do that. No, just do your shit. Like just do it all. And most times, the things that don't fit naturally will sort of kind of like they just get pushed to the side.
How do you get in the proper headspace to record and to express yourself and to be vulnerable or to be open? Have you found anything over the course of your career that really gets you there? Like whether it's like having a drink or like push-ups or whatever it is, like a certain time of night. Have you found anything that gets you there?
I mean, in different stages, it's been different things. For sure, alcohol was a big one. I mean, a little tequila in the past was it. Before it was whiskey, like Kaleidoscope Dream is like whiskey and
weed.
40s. Nope. It's like, I don't know why I was drinking 40s. I was like pounding 40s and tequila. And Wild Heart actually is tequila into mezcal. So I was like finding like mezcal and smoking for sure. Wild Heart, I'm like smoking a lot of weed. I also I think it's really interesting how drugs have influenced music along in these different periods of time. I mean, like jazz, it's like speed, You know what I mean? Like when jazz
Or
was a
heroin,
premier, or
right?
heroin, right? It's like
Yeah.
depending, right? Or you listen to grunge music and you're like, yeah, heroin is this, it's a heroin
Yeah.
time. You're listening to how crack and cocaine influenced,
Yeah.
hip hop and its play in
Yeah.
that time frame, and the emerging artists. Drugs and alcohol and all kinds of illicit activity have always been a part of music and creativity, whether it be fine art or music and fine art. For me, getting in that headspace has been different in each era. This time, this album, I mean, I still love to drink. I hate to even say this, but like, if I'm out and there's a photo of me, I will guarantee you 9 times out of 10, I have. I love mezcal.
It's social lubricant.
Oh
I
my
can see.
God. And I'm very much a like introvert extrovert. It's like
Yeah, same.
I can do the extroverted thing. I very much like to be
For a time.
For a time. The social meter is not a large social meter, but it exists. And I do think that, a little mezcal with sparkling water and a lime kind of extends the battery a little bit.
That sounds nice.
It sounds incredible right now. Too early.
But yeah, you can go out for a period, but then you want to like rush home and get into the beanbag and just chill and just
I will
reflect
be right
and think
in this room with a record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a conversation with a handful of like really fun, interesting people, and I'm good.
Yeah. No, I feel that very deeply. What are you listening to these days? Like, is there any new old music you've discovered, or what have you been reaching for?
Well, this album, in this period, I've been really going back and like leaning into all my like more alternative tastes and influences. Going back to Pixies records, going back to that whole grunge era. So all of Nirvana, all of Soundgarden, all of that sort of like, Seattle area.
Yeah.
Then jumping into some of like jungle stuff has been a big one. And then like trying to find ways to infuse rhythms and chord progressions that just are nostalgic, or styles that are nostalgic to my youth. So cumbia is one of those ones where you'll hear a little bit of that, and like ranchera, you'll get a little bit of that in Caos. I think overall what I was searching for in listening to music and influence was like anything that felt dissonant. I felt like there's a rub there that created the tension that I was looking for.
Do you still feel in a place where you're recognizing and thinking about chaos, or has that all been exercised out through the album?
No, on the contrary, I want to wield it more effectively. I mean, my thinking on it is this, like, it's just about conditions to grow. Our conditions in general. If it's not growing, it's dead. Shout out to Lauryn Hill. I mean, one of the most poignant things that she said in an interview is like, if it's not growing, it's dead. And it's the truth. And for me, what I've realized is that in many ways, I think I believe in my core that we all need a little chaos to grow. Maybe I'm wrong. I know for me, that's the outside of my depth that Bowie talks about, is the place where an artist really can thrive. It's the unknowing, it's the uncertainty that pushes it outside of that comfort zone, that means we need to stretch in not ways that we necessarily know, but that we need. And so Chaos, I think, in my life, this album represents my acknowledgement of the chaos that I've created in my life. I'm making peace with it in a lot of ways in order to better utilize it for my purpose and while I'm here. And I want to continue to curate chaos in my life.
How are you going to do that? How do you curate chaos in your life right now? Like intentionally, like mess up a situation just to get the feel that feeling and kind of like use that for growth? Is that what that means?
Not toxic chaos. We don't want any more toxic chaos. Though old habits die hard. And I think me stepping into my adulthood and my responsibility is one way that I ensure that the chaos that I do curate in my life is really intentional. So I look at ways of like,
Mm-hmm.
how do I infuse something that is not obvious and is not normal or natural? So taking, I mean, what a simple way is like I love that Portishead on 3, like switch up all of their instruments instead of everyone is playing a different instrument. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's chaos to me because no one is in a comfort zone when
Yes.
it's not.
No, I understand that.
You know what I mean? So I think of
I understand
chaos in
that.
my life in that way. We definitely don't want any more toxicity.
Yes.
We don't need it. It's just, I don't think that's necessary.
No. Especially not when you're approaching 40.
Bruh.
Things are different.
Look, and isn't it? It's a crazy thing because
I know for me, I want all stability.
bruh, I'm like I said, it's like I want peace in my life in general, but again, controlled chaos in the right places, whether it's like shaking up my team and infusing someone who's not in the music business in a role that maybe is adjacent in a different field, in a different field.
Yes.
So that we have fresh thinking, that we're not approaching things with the constructs of the status quo in mind. It's like the chaos that means we're breaking rules, but with a purpose.
Yes. So did you realizing your place in the chaos or maybe creating it in some way where you weren't completely aware of it, did you realize that through just natural aging, or was it through like therapy work? I know you're about to turn 40 and this album's coming out on your 40th birthday.
Yeah.
That seems like a really big milestone. Like, how are you thinking about turning 40?
I think for whatever reason, I wrote this song when I was much younger that we never put out called Hard Way, which is like, I always learn the hard way. Actually, no, it's on the first album. What am I talking about? It's on the first album. See? My brain is oxidizing as we speak. There's a song on the first album called Hard Way, and it's like I always learn the hard way, and I hate to have like maybe put that out in the that energy out there, or I've accepted that, but in some ways I've been able to see things before they happen and change course. But in a lot of ways, I have learned the hard way, and I've been lucky to not learn the hardest way. But I've got a few bruises and scars, that are reminders, and I think that's the journey of life. Anyways, it's like Hunter S. Thompson, like not wanting to reach the end pristine and clean, but with fire shooting out of the back and screeching, barely crossing the threshold. I think something about that has always been the way that I imagine my life kind of going, and thankfully it hasn't meant that I have reached the finish line prematurely. And I think here at this point, I want to make sure it doesn't happen prematurely. But I do know that it serves.
You seem like a healthy guy, like.
Word, that's the key.
Yeah. Like you seem like healthy mind and body, like you're thinking about it.
I mean, having the opportunity to do this every day, and to express oneself and one's emotions, I think is a key. And for me, it's been the true meditation of my life. And I found, there's other tools that are super helpful. I think musicians and artists and through all mediums do find real solace and peace when they're able to create, and they find that connection to the higher thing. But overall, like I don't want to paint myself into any corner where like I'm like out here just causing havoc or anything like that. But I do know that I've had to learn some hard lessons, like anyone in the world, and I think I'm at a place in my life where I want to be real intentional about, the paths less taken that I really want to take, and ones that actually are worth my time, are worthy of the effort, worthy of the risk, as opposed to kind of going into things too haphazardly.
We'll be back with more from Miguel after the break.
Was you getting into the suspension thing where you were hanging from your piercings? That seems very chaotic to me. Is that along the same lines of thinking for you?
You know, the trippy part about that is that even physiologically, what that does is it actually, well, first and foremost, it's like an adrenaline rush, right? And something about that is very calming. I found it to be really meditative and not chaotic. I mean, doing suspension has a different purpose and meaning for every person that has ever done it or that practices it. I wouldn't say that I practice suspension. But the purpose of doing suspension at the time was to open up a conversation that is relevant to this album. And that is like, what is my relation to pain? Why do I carry pain with pride? What pain am I carrying that I'm not really addressing or acknowledging? And how is that a part of the story I've written about myself? How does that enabling? How is it fueling? And how is it like holding me back? It was about having that conversation and kind of like giving it a visceral reference. But it was all about understanding pain and wanting to talk about it publicly, which I believe we carried over into this album.
What happened with that album?
It evolved. It definitely evolved. Viscera was initially meant to be Bad Habits, Sad Anthems, which I still think is a fucking ill-ass title. And then it became not just me wanting to just do an album of like, kind of like the antithesis of what people know most about my music. And I think that is like feel good, romantic, sensual, dreamy, to kind of go like, all right, how do I shake this up and make space for the other side of the coin, which is like that I do have bad habits, that there are sad anthems, and I wanted to do a whole album about that. And I think in that process, it was getting real heavy. It was like even for me, I was like, maybe some of this stays in the vault.
Yeah. Did anything from that album carry over to the new album?
Yeah. I would say a good quarter of that record was actually kind of like became What is Chaos. Yeah.
The album is so good, by the way, or what I've heard of the album is so great.
That's really kind. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I love the title track. Tell me about just the overall sound for it and what your vision was for it, how it came together.
It started out, I'd come across a children's choir on Instagram, and they had done, do you remember that the THX, it was a crescendo, but it was kind of like,
yes,
you go to the movies for those of you who aren't, who haven't been to the movies back in like the 90s or before that. As you intro a movie, they wanted to flex the sound in the room, and very often the companies would have an audio kind of intro to give you a sense of like the ability and how incredible the sound system was. And I think it's THX, please correct me, I'm sure someone will afterwards, but it was one of those companies that it had this beautiful crescendo, a chordal crescendo, and these kids were doing that crescendo, but with their voices, a children's choir doing it, a glissando up.
That's so cool.
Or a port upwards. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And I asked the children, so I asked them to come, and they did, and they basically sang this part. It's just a then and they do like that whole gliss or port. And I just was like, this is the coolest shit. And I was like, we got to use that. Kind of sampled that first, and then I programmed like a rough drum section that I felt was like, I wanted it to drive, because I had this idea about talking about just chaos and what chaos's place in my life. And it just felt kind of, the notes felt like they were giving me that. It's dramatic, it feels very dramatic, and
it is.
It kind of pulls you in.
It's a little bit haunting too. It's a little bit creepy.
Yeah. it was just interesting, the emotional context of visually watching them really be in it and like kind of the joy they're getting
Yeah.
out of performing this thing, but then how it feels, how the notes feel against each other. And I thought that was the perfect place, and it sparked this idea that, you know, in my life I've subconsciously, I think, curated chaos in one way or the other in my life. And I think I've finally kind of come to a place where I'm understanding what that's about. I've never really taken time to really look at it, and that really set off the whole idea. It was like, man, there's a childlike part of me that plays into this, and there's a joy that I get out of it that I don't understand. And that's why the first line is like, I think I'm better under pressure, and that sort of sets the stage for the album, you know, and the rest kind of unfolds as it goes. So
cool. You mentioned earlier that for the title track, you made sort of what sounds like a sketch of the beat, and then you passed it to
Ray Brady. That's my one of my best friends, and we've worked on this album a lot together. So we produced the song together, but the drum programming specifically is like, that's his. I mean, he's incredible across the board. But I mean, the way the drums hit, that's definitely his shit. I learned a lot working with him through this album.
So cool.
On the technical side, as a producer. So,
is that normally how it goes for you? Like, do you normally make sketches of the music and then pass it to him, or what's the process usually like?
It varies. Kind of starting with Kaleidoscope Dream, I really got in my like executive producer bag and really wanted to focus on the overall vision of the album and what that was communicating overall. I didn't produce, though I was very much involved in the sonic nature of Kaleidoscope Dream. And that kind of gave me a lot of confidence to actually use my own production. The only song that I produced on Kaleidoscope Dream is Adorn. And that's like top to bottom. So it was kind of the first time I was like, all right, fuck it. Like they fuck with it. But I was I wasn't sure if it was gonna work commercially or anything like that. Like if it was gonna feel professional enough or what have you.
Really?
Yeah. So that's the first time I really like my production was released professionally and actually was, you know, became something that was a success commercially.
Wow. So does that make you feel like as a producer, does that validate your skills and your ear? Like, what did that do to you as an artist, knowing how well that song did?
I mean, it's definitely encouraging, but there's absolute levels. There are levels to this shit. And the great thing about me is like, I'm not so focused on how things sound sonically as much as I care about how they feel, you know? Oh. And I think there's a bit of ignorance that I always want to keep. I kind of like that. I'm like, I don't really know like what I did there, but it just felt right. And that's maybe my own idiosyncrasy or whatever, but there's definite levels to this, and it is a science for a lot of people. That's why there's incredibly successful producers who know down to the T on how to emphasize things in different ways to,
like a Dr. Dre. Like he's supposed to be like an incredible engineer, producer, obviously.
But also Dre, like, yes. But then, you know, Dre is different without Quick. You have to listen. You got to know that DJ Quick is in there mixing and carving in a way that gives that sound. Like that's a lot of that is Quick's DNA. And like anybody who knows is Quick is DJ Quick is an incredible fucking engineer, like, and producer. So Dre is Dre and it's always gonna be Dre. But you know, like we're saying, is like to know the science of how, as Dave Siddick is one of my brothers and best friends, also on this album. One of my favorite things, and this is his theory on life. He's like, one cut is worth 1,000,000 boosts. And that is so true across life, across music. It's like, it's not always about adding. A lot of times the magic is there because the magic was instinctual. That came from something else. Your choices in the inspirational moment, in that, I'm inspired now. All of those things, that's meant to be there. And then most times, and he would say, 9 times out of 10, take something out, cut something out,
Yeah.
EQ that out. What's the most important part about that frequency? What's the most penetrating part of that harmony? What's the what is it in the feeling in the music that we need to make sure we preserve that's getting in the way of the emotional intention? So yeah, learning how to do that more intimately and like on a more like technical level is probably one of the most enjoyable things, working with a close, like my boy. He's not black, but that's my nigga. Like, that's my guy, right? And I'm lucky to kind of have really like brothers and best friends and like spiritual warriors that I also get to work with. So I think that was the big learning on this album. And there's some failings on this album too that I kept, that I'm like, yeah, this
Like
isn't
what?
the best.
Not to focus on the negative, but
No,
what do you see
what-
as a failing at this point?
But that's what I love about this conversation, and I love watching episodes of this. Is like the insight that you get that's like really for the nerds and who care about this shit. So I can like talk shit about my own shit. Like Perderme on this album is about the feeling of the music, but like it's really like a shitty mix. It's my own shitty mix on the record, and like you can hear it. Like I'm like playing it in any room. I'm like, yep, that shit could have been better, but it still feels like the feeling of what I meant is still there. Like kind of like there is an angst in it, but it's about the line. It's a line in the first verse, which is like, I become a healer. I forget myself and I become a healer. And that in this mode, when I'm avoidant and leaning into my avoidant tendencies, it often leads into wanting intimacy because it allows me to forget myself and my own shit.
But at least you're aware of it. I feel like that's the first step. You're not just doing things blindly in a pattern over and over till you die.
No. Yeah.
Are there any other songs on the album or any other moments in the studio, anything that was where maybe you had some sort of creative awakening or something different that you can take away from this project and maybe use in the future?
El Pleito is a special one. But there's a lot of these sonically I learned a lot. And also in terms of like melding genre.
Yeah.
And sort of wielding the sticky parts or the parts of certain genres that just I feel are very much a part of my identity, and fusing them together to make something that feels unique to me. This was a really fun experience that I think will inform the next couple records, because I'm planning on leaning more into my heritage and more like the rhythms and approaches on both sides, but that are more like ethnic, like my ethnic influences, and leaning into those even more than I did this time, and marrying them even more with my cultural influences. I feel that I'm right at the cusp of something that's really uniquely mine finally, and I think
cool.
Which is exciting for me is like going harder and leaning into them more.
One last break and we'll be back with Leah Rose and Miguel.
I feel like you've always had such a strong point of view, and a lot of what you did early on helped sort of birth this whole like alt-R&B genre that is now just commonplace, where it didn't used to be commonplace at all.
Thank you.
But when you say that you feel like you finally found your voice, what does that sound like? Like, how would you describe that?
I think the rhythmic nature of that's just a part of where my parents come from and their experience and their parents come from. There is something that is universal about that I feel we're just scratching the surface on this record, and it only happens in a couple places. I would love to lean into that as well as that alternative. I think the alternative, if you want to call it that, influence in my music has always been there. And so I want to experiment more with how I can make those work together. And then also make my, my songwriting, make it more cohesive and sharpen my songwriting on the Spanish side. I think there's so much. I'm excited to do that and to work with incredible songwriters and learn from them, because there's a whole opportunity. It unlocks a whole opportunity in terms of connecting ideas and that don't work in English. So like the lateral thinking and the fun part about songwriting is like how we're connecting one thing to the next, not just by rhyme, but by like the analogies, all of the literary tools, and how what that unlocks in terms of what I can say.
Yeah. Growing up, was there a lot of music in the house? Like what role did music play in your household?
Music for me was an escape when my parents were still together. So that only goes up until age 8. In the house was, hip hop, lots of funk. My dad was kind of a yacht rock, loved classic rock. He was a big Eagles fan, big Bowie fan, loved the Beatles, Queen. He was a big Santana fan. War was big for him.
Yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, massive. These are all, this is that era. We're talking about great, everything from the 60s on, he was like heavy into. Yeah.
What about your mom? What was she into?
Big soul fan. Anything Motown, anything coming from Detroit, and anything that you would hear at a function, that they used to dance to in high school, because my parents were young. So they had me at 23, I believe. They're the same age, so 22, 23, and they met in high school. So all the things that they were enjoying in high school, Luther Vandross, you know what I'm saying? All of these things that were in the ether.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in San Pedro, an art punk haven. All just the Ramones have been through San Pedro. We've got a lot of great punk culture in San Pedro that I grew up right around. Minutemen, that's Pedro. So, and that's in the 80s. When I was born, I was like really, really young. Like I'm talking about 1 to 5 going into the 90s. Like it had started to die down, but the scene and the venues that were being played at Firehouse, we're talking about these are like within blocks of where I grew up. Like I'm on 3rd and Center, and we're talking about downtown San Pedro is like 3 blocks away, and this is like kind of like an epicenter of where a lot of that energy is like really being expressed. And I grew up around punks. I grew up around cholos and gangsters, and so I got a lot of all of that.
Yeah. Are you the kind of artist who has hundreds of songs just like done on hand if you need them? Or when you start a new project, are you very much like, all right, we got 12, we got 14, we're done, move on?
I wasn't before I took 8 years to finish an album. I was very much like, no, we want to create in the moment. This is what this is here. I wouldn't say I have hundreds of songs, but I definitely have more. I have more songs that need to be cut and never see the light of day or ever need to be heard by anyone than I usually would. But I will also say there's a lot of songs that I still want to use for, future albums or the next album. I would prefer to remake for the music to feel very current and for me.
And you always have struck me as a person who is creative first, meaning the most important thing for you is just to make things. And how people categorize or maybe even interpret those things, that comes second. Does that sound accurate?
Super accurate. I think breaking free of the expectation is a big part of what I needed to kind of step away and recalibrate on. Because in the beginning, I think we start with all the excitement and possibility. And we mimic with no judgment. We imitate with a sense of play and excitement of what is possible to program our bodies to do, you know? And there's so much honesty in that jumping off place and allowing oneself to just explore and to be excited by what comes out, even if it's shit, you know what I mean? Because I've got more terrible things in the vault that's just, you know, it's even funny to go listen and go, it's pretty funny. Like, I see what I was trying to do there. And to hear the play in it, the exploration, the things that are wrong but that are right, the things that hit a chord within, you know, when you listen to it, and the things that are just trash. and you know, to give it that kind of energy is making that right change in the right place, or everybody on the same page, catching a feeling to move into another phrase, or whatever that thing is. When you're able to do that and it garner attention, well, then it's easy to lose sight of the whole, the thing, the glue, the purpose in it in the first place. And I think I wasn't doing enough calibrating along the way, you know?
Do you have any musical mentors or people in the business or in your position or in a similar position that you can talk to honestly and be like, look, I'm feeling lost right now. I need help. Is there anybody who you can go to as a guide?
Throughout my career, I've mentioned Mark Pitts as kind of one of those ones who believed early and had the leverage and the reputation to convince a lot of people who otherwise would have wrote me off, cut their losses and moved on, so to speak, when it wasn't all profitable, you know, when it was looking like there wasn't a way forward. That was someone that I could always call on and trust to give not business insight alone, I think more human insight. And so he was someone that I could always call on. But through my life, I think it'll always be my family. I got lucky, and I have an incredible, incredible mother and father who have been, you know, truly, truly upfront about what they do and do not know. Even when I was, you know, too young enough to care about it, they've always been there to kind of, Mike, you know that's not right, Mike, you know, and give me the thing that I need to hear, that I can trust is coming from a really pure place, you know. So I got lucky, and that's, and in fact, you know, my brother is one of my best friends, Nonchalant. He's on this album, and I've gotten lucky to have just great people along the way, including my team. Drew has been with me for years. Anyone who knows me and we've done business with knows Drew. That's my guy. He's my right hand. He's been with me since my first real check performing outside of Los Angeles. You know, he literally was at my very first show, way up in Connecticut.
Oh, in Connecticut?
Yeah,
wow.
It was in Connecticut. $1,000 show to perform All I Want Is You at a club, you know, and it's like, this is like someone who's been with me for, you know, a decade plus, more than, you know. So we're talking about 15, 16, 17 years.
Yeah.
I've been lucky to have people that I can trust, you know, but I've also...
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I've gotten lucky in that way. So those are the people that I could lean on to kind of be like, hey, man, you swerving. You swerving hard right now.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you before we go, I wanted to ask you about the visuals for Chaos, for the title track. It's so cool. What are you wearing, and where did all that come from?
Banger. As I kind of mentioned, like the themes of the album, or the theme of the album, is really centered around, you know, the purpose of chaos in my life and what I'm learning because of it and what I need to make peace with. And in just kind of reading and some research on where I come from, my family is from a region in Mexico that a tribe is from. So by blood, I have lineage to a tribe called the Puripecha. I think it's Puripecha. I might be killing the name Puripecha, but they're the only tribe in the region to not be conquered by the Aztec. They're like they're like warriors, you know, and they were never conquered. So like kind of doing deep dives into like my heritage, where my family is from, and it kind of led me to find a celebration in Mexico called La Danza de los Diablos, which is the dance of the devils. And contrary to what the title suggests, it's actually a celebration, a commemoration of slaves in Mexico, African slaves and Mexican slaves, freeing themselves from their masters.
Wow.
And the visuals are an homage to this idea that I'm making peace with, I'm addressing, and freeing myself in some ways from my own demons.
How did it feel to put the clothes on? Was that powerful in itself, just wearing the clothes?
It's hot as fuck because it's so many layers. That shit is just hot. I'm talking about like a scarf on the head and then another scarf and that shit's around your neck and you got chivarras and yes, you got boots on.
Like chaps, right?
Yeah. Chivarras, that's the chaps that they wear are
it's like chaps, but like fur?
Yeah, it's goat hair. Yeah. Chivarras. It looks sick. But it does give you a whole other feeling. I wanted to make sure that we were paying homage, but not like ripping it, you know, and it just being like a full yank. So the key elements that I feel really resonated with me and where the chivarras and the garb appear, I think, because what that actually is for is like to protect the face from the mask. And the artisans that make these masks, there's only a handful that are like known to be like it's like a swordsmith. If you're a samurai, you want this kind of blade from this. So in the same way, the makers of the garbs, they're artisans that are like, these are the guys you go to. And the masks are pretty heavy. These shits are like wooden masks, and then they've got, you know, they're all very different and they're ornate and in different ways, but them shits is heavy, and when you put it on, if you don't have anything to protect your head, it's gonna hurt you. The sheer weight, and then the movement with it on also, it moves around and shit, so the garb is kind of like in anticipation of putting on the mask.
But that's another way to process pain.
You know,
You're
exactly.
experiencing pain in a different way.
Which is the reason why you won't really see me, because I think the purpose of this album and the proposition is that I'm making peace with my demons so I don't have to wear a mask. You know, I'm freeing myself of them. But yeah, all
I love
all
that.
considered. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Miguel, for talking about this album and for making the album.
Man, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Best of luck. I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. Appreciate your time. Great to hang. And hopefully we see you again soon.
In the episode description, you'll find a link to a playlist of our favorite Miguel tracks. Be sure to check out youtube.com/Broken Record Podcast to see all of our video interviews. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Broken Record Pod. You can follow us on Twitter at Broken Record. Broken Record is produced and edited by Leah Rose with marketing help from Eric Sandler and Jordan McMillan. Our engineer is Ben Tolliday. Broken Record is a production of Pushkin Industries. And if you like this show, please remember to share, rate, and review us on your podcast app. Our theme music's by Kenny Beats. I'm Justin Richmond.